Today I'm going to be talking about the Rogue Invitational and what it means for the current state of competitive CrossFit and competitive CrossFit moving forward. First of all, I want to preface this by saying it's awesome that we even have in-person competitions right now, and this is literally free entertainment. Like, I can just go on YouTube and watch the best CrossFitters in the world duke it out online. That's freaking awesome. So any criticisms I might have of the Rogue Invitational are simply because I want to be a person that steers CrossFit in the right direction, and we have a sport that's largely still in its infancy, but it's got so much potential, and we need people to push it forward so that we can become a more legitimate sport and make it as awesome as we all know that it can be. So I'm going to be going over many of the positives of the Rogue Invitational and then some things that I think they could have done better. The positives. The Rogue Invitational has stepped up and it's almost competed with the CrossFit Games to be the most anticipated CrossFit competition of the year. The prize money is huge. All the top names are there competing. In general, Rogue is really good at live coverage. They have really creative events, which we'll talk about later. They have a lot of different elements in their events, and they draw in an awesome crowd. So the Rogue Invitational was something I was super excited to watch, and I think it had a lot of anticipation from everybody in the CrossFit community. As far as the athletes go, look, Annie and Justin are the real deal. They're both coming off awesome performances at the CrossFit Games, and I think everybody was excited to see how Annie and Justin were going to perform at the Rogue Invitational. We know Tia's going to do amazing. We know Pat's going to do amazing most of the time. It was interesting to see how Justin and Annie were going to handle this pressure. Annie is freaking nuts. This is the first time in a long time that someone has pushed Tia all the way up to the final event. There was a time in the past where other Icelandic women we thought were surpassing Annie, and here we are in 2021 with Annie being clearly the second fittest woman in the world and almost the fittest woman in the world. This is especially interesting because she just recently had a kid. She's got this story that's super inspirational for people all around the world, that she has worked her way to the top and is fitter than she's ever been just 1 year after having a baby. Justin is so consistent. Justin's consistency is what won him the CrossFit Games and the Rogue Invitational. Pat can go out there and win the events he needs to win, but if Justin is 5 seconds behind him and not giving him any more than 5 points every event, you can't beat a guy that's in the top 3 in every single event unless you're absolutely perfect. And I think Pat Vellner realizes that now. 2 events stick out to me that were really impressive by Justin. The first one is the burpee pull-up event. The burpee pull-up benefits a taller athlete. They have to jump less high. Every rep over the course of 45 is easier for them than a shorter athlete because they have to do less of a pull-up and they're just closer to the bar every time they stand up. Pat Vellner crushed that event, which he needed to do, but Justin was just behind him. And that's something that I definitely didn't expect. The other event was the Skierg GHD running event. Okay, Pat did something that was smart. He was letting go of the med ball, rolling it forward, tapping the front, rolling it back, grabbing on, sitting back, and doing his GHD sit-up. Okay, that was smart. That's something that a normal CrossFitter needs to do in order to sustain good GHD sit-ups through a huge event. But the thing is, Justin didn't do that. He held onto the ball and just gripped and ripped every single GHD sit-up, and he held on too. We're kind of past the point where doing something that's slower but more efficient is better, because you have people like Justin who don't need to do that and can just go balls to the wall the entire event and win it. So while Pat is smart and he had a technique in mind that he stuck to, you can't beat a guy who's just ripping as fast as he can through the GHDs the entire event and never slows down. Another thing that was really interesting and fun for me was Laura Horvath and Gabby Migalla. She's from Mallorca, so I think it might be pronounced Migalla, but I'm an idiot, so I have no idea. Laura Horvath gets a lot of press because, she's podiumed at the game. She kind of has a history with handstand push-ups, which is holding her back. Gabby is in incredible shape, and her name has been in the space for a while, but I don't think people understand that she's super young and she's continuing to get better. So I love that those two put on an awesome show, and Gabby ended up on the podium. I think that those two are going to be forces to reckon with for a long time and don't get enough press. Guy is strong as hell, okay? We all know it. I was there when he snatched 291 as a teenager, and then I was in the Rogue tent at the CrossFit Games immediately after, and he walked in and he was walking around, he was dabbing all over the place. It's cool to see that he's evolved into a much better athlete overall. He's crushing other events that aren't just weightlifting events. Now that he's under the eye of the Mayhem crew, you know, he has the potential to get a lot better very quickly, so he's going to be fun to watch. In fact, despite what the announcers said, this is the reason why he won the final event. Everybody else was dropping the bar to their hips and then lowering the bar to the ground under control and then trying to do these touch and go reps. Guy is strong enough and confident that he was going straight from overhead right to the ground. You know, we see people do this with like 75 pounds on a snatch. This guy is doing this with 205. He was by far the fastest in the descent of the snatch, which allowed him to tap and go super quickly and get through the snatches way faster than everybody else. We know he's a fast sprinter. He won the sprinting event at the games. And then he was able to just pick up the sandbag, no problem, because he's strong as all heck, and sprint to the end. That was an awesome finish for him, and he deserves it. He's super strong. If you've ever been on Reddit, you know that everybody is going to bash CompTrain and the athletes that move to CompTrain that have good potential but then fizzle out. Okay? I'm not saying I'm one of those people. I'm not saying I'm not one of those people. But Chandler Smith clearly has strength and work capacity to allow him to be one of the best CrossFitters. He sometimes does stuff like those weird power cleans where you're like, why hasn't he been working with a coach that makes him do proper weightlifting technique that allows him to reach his potential? Look, Chandler, Barnhart, Quant have a ton of potential. They're still young. They're going to continue to do great. Huge news with Katrin that she's leaving CompTrain. A ton of people online are rejoicing. I think it's going to be interesting to see, does she get better over the next couple years? In which case we can point towards her CompTrain training and say that maybe it wasn't the best for her. Or if she doesn't really improve the next couple years, we just know it's hard to be at the top of a sport for a long time. Okay, let's talk about the programming. I thought overall the programming was really good. Rogue does a good job with bringing together different elements. I personally enjoyed the events that had a mix of small guy versus big guy elements within an event. So there was one event that was thrusters, echo bike, thrusters. Thrusters tend to be better for short people. They have a shorter range of motion, they can squat way faster. The echo bike tends to be better for bigger guys. They have more weight, they can push into the pedals, cranking out the calories a little faster. So I liked how that was sort of a short guys do really good on the thrusters, then the big guys come in and they might be able to catch up and surpass them on the echo bike, and then it's just an all-out brawl for the last set of thrusters. I also liked the rowing, box step-ups, which were good for taller athletes, and then going into strict handstand push-ups, which tend to be good for shorter athletes with shorter arms. That was cool because the events were varied enough that they allowed the fittest people to win, not necessarily just people with a certain body type. The last positive, which I think was very good, was that they did a really good job with the camera work. It was fun to watch. You kind of saw everything that was going on. And second of all, the Rogue Fitness website made it super easy to know what event was happening when. So I could just log on right before it started and watch the event. The website and the schedule are a very underrated piece of an event. Like, don't even get me started with the Wadapalooza website. That makes no sense at all. So I thought it was very fun to watch, and easy to understand. Now, let's talk about some things that maybe they could have done slightly better. First of all, the announcers. Like, dude, I know it's gotta be hard. I'm not saying I would be any better at announcing, but I find myself sometimes distracted and annoyed by the announcers. And I can go all the way back to regionals events in years past and think about how horrible the announcing is. I know it's got to be difficult, but sometimes they try to extrapolate too much data that just doesn't make sense, and then they end up contradicting themselves a few sentences later. Like, oh, in this event, the Skierg is absolutely negligible. They're all going to crush the Skierg at the same pace. And then a few minutes later, they're like, you know, the reason he's getting ahead is because of the Skierg. Or the GHDs, everybody's going to be doing the same thing on the GHDs. Oh, this guy's winning because of his GHDs. You know, it's like sometimes maybe less is more in my mind. Like early on in events, maybe don't try to extrapolate so much data or anticipate what's going to happen, because when that doesn't happen, it ends up kind of sounding a little, you know, they'll also often be like, we'll expect everybody to do this unbroken, and then 1 second later, everybody breaks it up on purpose. You know, it's like, maybe I shouldn't have said that, dude. I actually think the best coverage of the Rogue Invitational was Brent Fikowski on his live streams. That dude is super analytical. He's got the experience as a competitive athlete to know exactly what he's talking about. I think maybe mixing up who's doing the announcing and bringing in some people like Brent or some other ex-competitors might allow everybody to step up in the announcing to get a little better, okay? Next, there was a lack of a long time domain event that involved a lot of cardiovascular endurance. There were 2 events that were pretty long. There was a 30-minute time cap on the first one, and then another event that was roughly 15 minutes, but the thing about those events was they were actually muscular endurance events. The only reason anybody would hit a 30-minute time cap on the first event was because they couldn't do a rope climb, so there was a lot of standing around. Similarly, the next longest event was a lot of people standing around because they couldn't do as many strict handstand push-ups in a row. So I think if you go online, you'll see that a lot of people were saying that there was not an event that really tested a longer time domain, like 20 plus minutes, where the people who have really good engines and really good cardiovascular endurance were gonna succeed in that event, okay? I also know as a spectator, sometimes it's more fun to watch more fast events, but I do think that they could have done a better job with a longer time domain. Also, in years past at the Rogue Invitational and often with the games, we see an event where they're running around the grounds, and you know, you got the dude in the truck with the camera following them, and you've got people lining the sidewalk cheering them on as they go. This event, they were confined to the diamond and they never left the diamond. So you didn't really get that one event where they were out running around the grounds and it was exciting for the people to see who came into the diamond first, you know, on the final lap or whatever. So that's something that I think they could have done that they didn't incorporate into this event. As a dude who's been in CrossFit for a really long time, I know that the heavy ruck bag must have just been absolutely brutal. Okay, that event, there are a lot of people resting. You know, there were even people like sitting down on the pad, just stretching out their arms and stuff. I know that, but I would say friends of mine who aren't as into CrossFit or people who are just new into CrossFit, they might watch that event and be like, why is everybody standing around? This isn't impressive. So, you know, do they change that? I don't know. I think it was cool to have a really heavy ruck pack, but it was hard as a spectator to really understand what these people are going through. Also, that event had the over-unders and then like a really short wheelbarrow. I think that there could have been way more over-unders or more running, or the wheelbarrow pull and push could have been much longer, because really that event was just a rope climb event. There's some movements that are hard to understand the standards of. So step ups are one in particular. You know, I found myself watching and really questioning, like, dude, is this guy standing up all the way? Is he really getting hip extension? You know, some people's hip extension and knee extension was much more pronounced than other people's, and I don't think they really no-repped anybody in that event. The step ups should have been step overs. Step overs are very clear. Did you step over the box or not? Step ups, there's such a gray area with, did they full extend, did they not? Same thing with handstand push-ups. You know, clearly from all the opens in the past couple years, it's hard to find a real good standard for handstand push-ups. You know, sometimes people are kind of here, sometimes people are shooting their head through and it looks way better. Maybe they need to tell us exactly what the athletes were briefed in the back, because as a spectator, sometimes you're like, well, wait, half these people are doing one thing and half these people are doing the other, and none of them are getting no reps. So what's going on here? You know, maybe bring in someone like Boz or whoever is the head judge of the Rogue Invitational onto the stream and be like, hello, this is exactly what we're looking for. This is what we briefed the athletes for in the back. So as long as they're reaching these points of performance, then the rep is gonna count. As someone who's been in CrossFit for a long time, I find myself being like, some of those reps are pretty iffy, but then again, I don't know exactly what they're saying in the back. So overall, was the Rogue Invitational good for CrossFit, or did it push it in the wrong direction? I think it was good. It was super exciting. You know, that last event was amazing. All the top people were there. It was really fun to watch these people compete. Overall, they put on a really big show. The prize money was huge. I could see in the future the Rogue Invitational being right on par with the CrossFit Games as a competition that is seen as like the championship for CrossFit. Are there little things that could be fixed? Absolutely. Every iteration of the next biggest CrossFit competition, I think, can continue to get better, and I think we need to push these competitions to do things better. Was the venue better? I personally liked the venue from 2 years ago, but I wasn't there in person. So if you were there in person, let me know. Was it super exciting? Were the stands filled? Were people screaming? Or did it seem a little underwhelming? I'm excited where we're going with this. I think we can all work together to make this awesome sport continue to grow and continue to be more and more legitimate. I'm excited to see the next couple CrossFit competitions this year, and then going into the 2022 season, how the open and quarterfinals and semifinals all play out. So let's all just hold each other accountable and keep pushing each other to be better, so that these competitions and this entertainment and these athletes and everything involved in the CrossFit space can become more and more legitimate, so that we can enjoy it for years to come. Thanks for watching.